Why do so many African leaders act like their presidential palace is a retirement home? From changing constitutions to staging sham elections, it seems some leaders are determined to rule until death, or until the people chase them out. Today we're diving deep into the obsession with power in Africa, why leaders want to rule forever, and how history keeps proving that forever doesn't last. On October 27, 2014, millions of Burkinabés stormed the streets of Ouagadougou. Why? President Blaise Compaoré tried to change the constitution so he could extend his 27 years in power. The people's answer was simple: pack your bags. By October 31, 2014, he was gone, fleeing the country in a helicopter. That moment showed the continent that forever rule isn't guaranteed. But let's rewind and look at why so many leaders cling to power. Point 1. Fear of accountability. In many cases, stepping down means facing justice. Leaders like Yahya Jammeh of the Gambia ruled with fear, disappearing opponents and looting wealth. By the time he lost elections in December 2016, he fought desperately to stay, terrified of what would come next. Eventually, he fled into exile in Equatorial Guinea, where he still hides from prosecution. For these leaders, leaving power isn't just retirement, it's a death sentence to their freedom. Point 2. Weak institutions. Strong democracies survive because of strong institutions. But colonial powers left Africa with centralized, authoritarian systems. Instead of dismantling them, post-independence presidents inherited that throne and refused to weaken their grip. Take Uganda. Yoweri Museveni came to power on January 29, 1986, claiming no African leader should rule for more than 10 years. Fast forward almost 4 decades later, and he's still president in 2025. Why? Because in 2005, he scrapped presidential term limits. Then in 2017, Parliament conveniently removed the age limit too. Museveni turned the Ugandan constitution into a personal diary, rewriting it whenever it no longer suited him. Point 3. Greed and wealth protection. Ruling means controlling money, resources, and contracts. Stepping down risks losing all of that. Leaders fear that the next administration might freeze their accounts, seize their businesses, or even jail their families. Look at Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire, today's Democratic Republic of Congo. He ruled from 1965 until 1997, amassing a personal fortune worth billions while his people sank deeper into poverty. By the time he was overthrown, he had no way to protect his empire. That's why so many leaders refuse to let go. They're guarding their fortunes like dragons hoarding gold. Point 4. The cult of personality. Some leaders actually believe they are chosen to rule forever. They wrap themselves in national flags, build statues, plaster their faces on billboards, and rewrite history books. Take Paul Biya of Cameroon. He became president on November 6, 1982. Fast forward to 2025, and at 92 years old, he's still clinging to power. His supporters claim only he can keep the nation stable. But what they don't admit is that stability means silencing opposition and ignoring calls for real democracy. As we speak, Cameroon is at a crossroads. President Paul Biya, 92 years old and in power since 1982, is pushing for an 8th term in October. But this time, his path is under threat. Opposition leader Akir Tabung Muna, a respected lawyer, has filed a petition with the Constitutional Council. He argues that Biya is constitutionally ineligible under Article 118, citing the president's age, frequent health absences, and heavy dependence on others. Muna insists this isn't politics, but a matter of law. The council will issue its verdict this Friday at 11 a.m. August 2025 in Yaoundé. Yet doubts already hang over the process. Just recently, the same council barred Biya's main rival Maurice Kamto from running, sparking protests crushed with tear gas and condemned by Human Rights Watch. Still, Biya's candidacy has been announced on social media, showing his grip on power remains strong. As Cameroonians await the ruling, one question looms: will the law finally challenge a leader who has ruled for over 42 years, or will Biya's reign tighten its hold yet again? Point 5. Colonial legacy. Colonialism left Africa with systems designed for dictatorship, not democracy. Governors ruled without question, and presidents after independence stepped into that same throne. Instead of power being shared, it became concentrated in one seat, the presidency. That seat became so powerful, leaders would rather die in it than leave it willingly. Point 6. Lack of people's power, until. Sometimes, poverty and propaganda weaken resistance. Leaders control state TV, the police, and the military, making citizens feel powerless. But history shows that when people rise, no leader is untouchable. We saw it in Tunisia on January 14, 2011, when Zine El Abidine Ben Ali fled after 23 years in power. We saw it in Sudan in April 2019, when Omar al-Bashir was ousted after 30 years. And we saw it again in Burkina Faso in 2022, when young Captain Ibrahim Traoré, at just 34 years old, toppled the old guard in the name of change. So why do African leaders want to rule forever? Because they fear justice, they crave wealth, they worship power, and they inherited a system designed for dictatorship. But history keeps teaching one lesson: forever doesn't exist. From Compare in Burkina Faso to Mugabe in Zimbabwe, no leader is greater than the will of the people. And across Africa, from north to south, east to west, the people are rising, reminding presidents that power belongs to them, not a single man. Let's talk about the outside influence, the neo-colonial strings nobody likes to admit. For decades, African governments haven't been operating in isolation. Powerful nations, especially France and the United States, have shaped, pressured, and sometimes outright decided who stays in power and who gets pushed aside. Why? Because Africa is sitting on a treasure chest: oil, gas, gold, cobalt, uranium, coltan, and fertile land. To Western powers, the word stability often means one thing: keeping a familiar strongman in office who will safeguard their business interests, even if it means turning a blind eye to election fraud. Take France, for example. Their backing of dictators across Francophone Africa for decades is straight out of the neo-colonial playbook. And now? Enter China. With its massive infrastructure projects and aggressive resource deals, the competition for Africa's wealth has only gotten fiercer. Africa belongs to Africans. The world is welcome here, but understand this: the age of exploitation is ending. Soon, it won't be Africans running to the West for survival. It will be the world turning to Africa for freedom. If you believe Africa deserves true democracy, leaders who serve and step down with dignity, then make sure you subscribe to this channel, Avalanche Facts, because here, we expose the truth others are too afraid to say. The palace isn't a retirement home. And sooner or later, the people always have the final word. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next video. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to drop a super thanks, a super sticker, or hit up the super chat. It really helps us keep the good stuff coming.